Welcome to our lesson on resistant bacteria. The key questions for today are: why can bacteria be used to show evidence for Darwin's theory of evolution? How do antibiotic-resistant bacteria strains arise? What is an example of an antibiotic-resistant bacteria? How can the rate of the development of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria be reduced? Why are antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria a problem? The key terms that you will need to know are evolution, resistant, antibiotics, mutation, immune. Bacteria are single-celled prokaryotic organisms that reproduce very quickly by a process called binary fission. Most bacteria reproduce on average every 20 minutes. This means that a bacterial population grows very rapidly. Like any population, there would be variation because of random mutations in the DNA. Sometimes this mutation can make the bacteria resistant to antibiotics. This means that they will not be killed by antibiotics. When treated with an antibiotic, most of the bacteria will be killed, but the resistant bacteria will survive. These bacteria will then reproduce and pass on the mutation that makes it resistant to the antibiotic, giving rise to a whole population of bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. This is called a strain of bacteria. If treated with another antibiotic, some may be resistant to that one too, and the process repeats. Then the strain is resistant to more than one type of antibiotic and can give rise to superbugs that cannot be killed by any known antibiotic. Bacteria are responsible for causing many illnesses. When somebody has a bacterial infection, they may take antibiotics. Antibiotics are medicines that kill bacteria. When somebody is given antibiotics, the antibiotic kills the bacteria in the body. There are specific antibiotics for different types of bacteria, although most medicines contain an antibiotic that kills many types of bacteria. When taken, these antibiotics kill the bacteria. However, due to random mutations and variation among the population of bacteria, some may be resistant to the antibiotic. These will survive and reproduce, passing on the gene for resistance. This population is now resistant to the antibiotic. Task: complete this AQA exam question. Many strains of bacteria have developed resistance to antibiotics. The table shows the number of people infected with a resistant strain of one species of bacterium in the UK. Explain, in terms of natural selection, why the number of people infected with the resistant strain of the bacterium is increasing. Antibiotics kill non-resistant strains, so the resistant strain of bacteria survives and reproduces, passing on the genes for resistance. So the population of resistant bacteria increases, meaning people are more likely to become infected by it and then pass it on to someone else, as there is no treatment and people are not immune to it. This demonstrates natural selection, as the gene for resistance gives those bacteria a survival advantage, meaning that they survive long enough to reproduce and pass on the gene. MRSA is a well-known superbug caused by bacteria. The bacteria is harmless to most people, and a lot of people carry it without knowing. However, this bacteria can be very dangerous if someone who is already ill, has had surgery, or has an open wound becomes infected. Extension: why are hand sanitizers placed at the entrance to hospitals? Hand sanitizer kills MRSA to stop people who are carrying it transferring the bacteria to people in hospital who may be vulnerable. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria like MRSA occur through random mutations. However, there are things which can be done to help to slow down the development of new strains of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The use of antibiotics can be reduced, so doctors should only prescribe them when absolutely necessary and not for mild infections or viruses. Also, patients should ensure their course of antibiotics is completed so that no bacteria is left to reproduce, so there is less likelihood of new strains developing. The use of antibiotics in livestock used for food should also be regulated, and animals should not be given antibiotics unless needed, as they can build up in the food chain, again increasing the likelihood of new resistant strains of bacteria developing. The use of antibiotics in livestock used for food should also be regulated, and animals should not be given antibiotics unless needed, as they can build up in the food chain, again increasing the likelihood of new resistant strains of bacteria developing. It is important that we try to limit the development of new strains of bacteria, as the development of new antibiotics is slow and expensive. The rate that new strains of bacteria are developing is much faster than the rate new antibiotics are being developed. This means that there will be more untreatable bacterial infections in the future. Task: explain as fully as you can why there has been a large increase in the number of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria. The overuse of antibiotics leads to an increased chance of mutations occurring in the bacteria, meaning that some bacteria will become resistant to antibiotics. These survive and pass on their genes, whereas non-resistant bacteria get killed. This reduces the competition for the resistant bacteria, allowing their population to grow.